Good. Cool, y'all. Well, we're gonna just start diving in. People will continue filtering in over time. But first off, yo, thank you so much for like even taking the time out of your day to like hop into this. We're obviously over here at Symphony trying to preach like marketing, data, use these tools. But I think for us, it's really been a fundamental journey of learning about artist marketing over almost the last 10 years. And this is really just like the application of everything we've learned. And I think like sessions like this are really important for us personally because in our journey, a lot of the time, data and information is gatekept from artists, from teams. A lot of the times people are outsourcing things. And so for us, like it's important for the people in our community, for artists holistically to just know what data means and how to actually use it. And it's very much our kind of thesis of the company as well. If you give artists data, if you give them the transparency and the tools to run their business, great things could happen. But yeah, we'll just kick it off. Thank you all for tuning in. Symphony University. This is a series we're gonna start doing more consistently. I decided to kick off the first one with the topic how to get your first 100 fans. Especially like when we launched Symphony last year, I found myself hopping on calls with a lot of artists every week, just walking them through the platform. And this was a very common question we got, which was, I just signed up. I have all these tools. It's cool, but what does it mean? And how to actually use it to grow my fan base? If you're, an artist with a million monthly listeners, some of this might apply, some of this might not. This is really geared towards those artists that might have just like dropped their first song, they're early on, they're still trying to figure out how to use Symphony, use data, use marketing. And the way I'm going to approach it too is very much marketing holistically. Like it's marketing that can apply to like other types of businesses too beyond just music. And I'll even have some examples of how Symphony ourselves kind of takes artist playbooks, we call them, and uses it to kind of promote our features and the things we put out there. So without further ado, just going to dive in. Like I said, any questions that pop up, ask me in real time. I'm seeing the chat in front of me. So we will get started. Cool. So hi, I'm Meg. Just some introduction real quick. I'm the co-founder and CEO in Symphony. My whole career, I'm 28 now, but like my whole career since I was 21 has really been working in music, but outside of the music, like major label ecosystem. So a lot of it was just like finessing, trying to figure out how we can do this tech stuff inside of the industry. I like was fully not a music kid though. I went to school, University of Washington, grew up in Seattle, was very much swept up in like the tech craze of like 2012, 2013. And so a lot of it was me just being like, you know what, I want to go work in Silicon Valley. But around that same time was the kind of SoundCloud era kicking off. So it's kind of seeing artists like Chance and just all these artists, Childish Gambino. There's a whole wave of artists that kind of grew out of technology, enabling them to reach their fans. And being a tech kid, I was like, yo, there's something going on here. Like, how are all these artists blowing up with no label, with just the internet and their fan base? So I kind of did a full 180. I was like, you know what? Forget working in tech and going to Silicon Valley, doing all of that. I want to work in music. I had no connections to music. I was just like a tech kid, up in Seattle. But I came down to LA in 2016 to intern at Hulu just to get out of Seattle, get closer to the entertainment scene. Ended up meeting my now business partners of almost 10 years. One of them was Metro Boomin's tour manager at the time. So he had a lot of experience kind of being on the road with artists. That's Vlad. And then Chuka, my other co-founder, was previously at Techstars. So he had a tech background, but he was also Childish Gambino and Mac Miller's creative director. So he had some like design, art, creative experience. And I was like the tech nerd in the middle, like, yo, like let's do some dope stuff with artists. So we initially started our first company, Integral Studio, in 2016. And the initial thesis of the company was like, yo, can we take all the best practices that tech companies are implementing, right? Like Uber and Postmates, and I'm sure everyone gets ads all day from tech companies. Can we take those best practices that have been used for years in tech and apply it for artists? And nobody was giving us time of day because we're just a bunch of 21-year-olds like, yo, like, we want to build a crazy website. They're like, you guys are just newbies in the industry. And so that whole like first year was just trying to find our footing and like trying to find a way to actually build a business in music. We got very, very fortunate and blessed. We ended up meeting the TDE team in 2016. And they're like, you guys seem cool. You guys seem like you guys are technical and can build cool stuff. We have this artist dropping next year. The project's called CTRL, but you guys should build our website. So that was kind of our very first like happenstance opportunity to get into music. We kind of built out the technical rollout, the website, the digital rollout for CTRL. SZA would pull up to our house, like draw on our whiteboard, And for me, it was like, yo, this is kind of crazy that artists can just be so intentional with what they're putting out. And just seeing behind the curtains a little bit of how labels think and how management thinks, even someone that's as kind of well accomplished as TDE was very insightful. And so we're like, all right, cool, like this is dope. Built the website. Website is very fun, very interactive. She ended up signing a deal 2 months after we dropped the website. It went wild on Twitter. And so we were like, all right, cool. Like we did something here that helped an artist kind of get somewhere and sign a deal. That's dope. So that whole first year was just really doing more of that, like working with artists, working with labels, building websites. Got to work with folks like Rock Nation, for Big Sean, Capital, Lil Yachty, a bunch of folks on their websites. And then 2018, we're like, all right, cool. Like websites are fun. We love building cool stuff. But it's a very hard business to make money in, especially when you're trying to convince label people or people just in these companies that might not necessarily have the most data savviness around why owning your data and having a hub for it all to live was important. But that's kind of the horse we rode in on. So by the time 2018 rolled around, we looked back and we collected over 1 million fans worth of data from all these websites. The labels weren't asking us for it. The managers weren't asking us for it. So we're just sitting on this gold mine of like 1 million fans, what they're interacting with, what they're watching, what they're listening to, all this data we were sitting on. And we're just an independent company in music that just built websites. And so we're like, all right, cool. Like this streaming thing is starting to take off. All the label folks were like, yo, like, do you guys know how to run Instagram ads? We're like, all right, cool. Maybe there's something here for us to take this data and help artists out in deeper ways beyond just building websites. So around 2018, 2019 onwards, we started becoming more of a digital marketing agency more holistically. Started running ads, just very fortunately for a lot of the industry, working with folks like 21 Savage, Future, Chance, SZA, Travis, just a bunch of artists kind of across the ecosystem. And throughout that, the biggest learning for us was like, all right, cool. Like a lot of people in music are kind of just finessing the data because it's all over the place. If you had like someone in marketing at a tech company look at how a lot of the data stack is used in music today, just by the average company, it's very like fragmented. Data is all over the place. And so that was our specialty, was connecting the dots and actually having the data work for you. And then kind of off of that reputation, we signed a deal with Sony as a distributor in 2020. And in 2 years, really while learning how to build fan bases through the major label system, we ended up doing 220 million streams. And seeing that and kind of learning the process of actually building fan bases, we're like, all right, cool. Like we need to take everything we've learned and build it into one place where all of an artist's data lives so they can actually amplify themselves. So I know that's a little bit long, but this Symphony platform is really the result of like 10 years of really learning a lot about music marketing, more than a lot of people in the game. And all those kind of insights have been built directly into the platform from day one. But that's kind of besides the point. Diving in now, right? The one thing I learned really, marketing ourselves as an agency, marketing Symphony now as a product, marketing artists more directly. Marketing is just a set of principles. It's just different ways of reaching people in different capacities. Music marketing is one facet of it. When you do merch marketing or tour marketing or even product marketing like we're doing, the same principles still apply. And it's really about how you're reaching the fans and the ways you're drawing them in to be a part of your world. And so let's do a little bit of history real quick, right? I came into the game in 2016. That was right around the SoundCloud era. If I come in 2 years before that, I would be pushing albums. And 2 years before that, it was a whole different game. The thing with music is that it's always been very, very kind of costly, historically speaking, before this era to actually put things out. And so every single time someone will put something out, it costs a lot of money, right? If you wanted to back in the 2000s, you had a fire song, you couldn't just put it out there. You had to go and sign to a label or, push it out the back of your car trying to make some money. Or same with music videos, same with tours, same with merchandise. It was always very gate kept to actually put out anything in music, really up until like 5 or 6 years ago when the internet enabled more easier reach. And now today, like everything's accessible, right? Like I'm right here talking to like 100 people on here. You guys probably drop songs very consistently whenever you want to. You can upload a music video, whether that's snippets of your TikToks or something that you've actually shot. Nowadays, all the technology makes kind of the access to these tools a lot more easier and access to distribution a lot more easier. But because of that, everyone is now competing against each other. It's not a thing like it was 20 years ago where it's like, yo, like the label has given $1 million to this artist and like they're going to be the ones to break. Nowadays, it's like, yo, artists are building up their businesses before ever walking into a label, and purely leveraged because of today's market and how technology is impacting it. Owen, you wanna say something real quick? Yo, yo,
Yo, can you hear me?
sir, how's it going?
I was just wondering what your opinion on radio play is.
It's a very good question. I think I think for a lot of artists, it's something that's more of a brand awareness play than a product marketing play, quote unquote, right? So the way I see it is like brand awareness is like Instagram meme pages, right? Like someone might see your name out there, but they might not necessarily actually engage with your music, but they'll be like, yo, like, XYZ Meg artist drops this fire song. I think of radio very similarly, where someone might not take out their phone and be like, who's this playing on the radio? But just that seeing your name on playing on the radio, hearing the sound, and then maybe they go home and they get an ad for it. They're like, wait, I just heard this on the radio. I think it's much more um, conducive for brand marketing than it is for building an actual fan base, because a lot of fans aren't flocking to radio to find new music. There are people that do that, don't get me wrong, but that's not the primary means of consumption and discovery today. But if you're on the radio, you can post it on your Instagram, flex, and it just fuels your rollout a little bit more. That's kind of my 2 cents on it, and everyone obviously has different perspectives. That's just kind of what I think on that side of things.
So it's more of a play on the short-term market, on the short-term content and marketing play than the actual content itself.
I don't think it's even like a short-term play necessarily, but I think it's more of a brand awareness lever to pull, right?
Gotcha.
Like Ice Spice was going crazy on Twitter and then TikTok, and then she's on radio, so kind of cements her role. Like if you skip radio, she'd still be fine, but it just kind of cements you in the ecosystem of music a little bit.
But awesome, man. Thank you.
And yeah, you get paid really well for radio as well. A lot more than the stream. So that is the upside of it. If you catch something on radio, or have a promoter that's pushing you, it will pay out pretty well. So I'm gonna dive in for a few more slides and I'll take more questions. $40 for Sirius XM per stream. That is crazy, Sandra. That's wild. But yeah, like the philosophy I've kind of developed over the years is, and this is very much like anything, right? Like if you just put in consistent effort, and it's very easy to say this, but like if you just consistently are strategic with what you put out, and kind of have a plan of how you're going about it, fan bases should compound over time. Even if it's like one new fan coming in from this thing, or like 10 new listeners coming in from this thing, doing that consistently over and over, and it won't be a month or 3 weeks or 3 months, 6 months, a year. Like it might take a few years. That's the story of the average artist. But the idea is that if you're knowing where you're going and you're tracking your progress, it's much more easier to contextualize the impact you're making and the effort you're putting in, if that makes sense. And so what I mean by that is, tracking how you're growing and the tools you use is a very key part of what I'm about to dive into next. So the real topic that you guys are here for, or the topic of the conversation, is how do you get your first 100 fans? I'm not going to tell you like it's this or that. I'd rather give you playbooks and principles that I've used and I've seen that work consistently. And a lot of them can actually be used all the way up as you grow. And I'll show you guys some examples too at the end of like how larger artists are using some of these principles that smaller artists can also use, but in a much larger way. So let's start with the obvious. It takes work. I don't have to tell y'all that. It's a very hard journey being an artist, and just definitely something I respect a lot, given how the game has changed a lot. I feel the same thing with Symphony, right? Like we got to be heads down. There's a lot of people out there trying to do music marketing. We have to be very diligent about how we're building this business. But it's gotten a lot easier because we kind of have some tools and a game plan of how to do it. And this philosophy of like how you kind of how your tools and game plan come together is something we've kind of developed over the last few years at our agency. So let's start with the tools, right? So say you're dropping a song, you're dropping a music video, you're dropping merchandise, tour, a product, whatever it may be. You're either going to be spending time promoting it, or you're going to be spending money. If you went back 5 or 10 years, you'd probably only be spending time. There was very little things happening on YouTube, or there was YouTube, but it wasn't like today where it's very algorithmic. There wasn't TikTok. It was all Facebook. Instagram wasn't as popular as it is today. So back in the day, all you could do was spend money. And that's why these budgets back in the day were gigantic, but the return was way higher. Nowadays, with kind of the democratization of these kind of creation tools and discovery tools like TikTok, you kind of open up the opportunity to also spend time to promote yourself. And so I kind of look at every marketing plan and every marketing playbook with these two things in mind. And the beauty is, if you have zero budget, which a lot of artists do, that's totally fine. You still have all this amazing stuff on the other side where you will have to spend your time making content, putting it out there, kind of giving people a peek behind the curtains, so to speak. But that's the beauty of today's kind of world, is like you can make stuff and put it out there without spending money. If you do have money, you might want to invest a few hundred, a few thousand, maybe there's a major label or distributor backing you. It opens up the kind of leverage you can do because you can experiment more with megaphones, so to speak. Like you could drop a song, promote it on your reels and make 10, 15 reels. And maybe that hits for a certain while, but then maybe you see one reel going crazy and you're like, bet I'm going to promote this with $500 and drive more streams from it. And so it just gives you more of a way to amplify what you're already doing and putting out. So those are the tools and how I think about them. The game plan is more so how you apply these tools on a consistent, repeatable way. So I think about everything like a funnel. And this is kind of how like every product period works. Like even for Symphony, even for any brand you can think of, even for artists, obviously. There's all these people up here that are potential fans that are probably out there waiting to hear you. They just haven't heard your music because it hasn't been put out there necessarily. But there's a lot of people out there, the biggest pie of potential fans. The game to play here is how do you get all these potential fans from just being out there and not listening to or kind of engaging with you to a place where they're paying you money. And that's kind of where the magic is and kind of the art of it is. There's never one strategy that gets you from here to here, but there are playbooks I've kind of seen over the years. So starting from the top, right? Like potential fans, how do you turn them into passive fans? What I mean by passive fans is I might not know about you today on Spotify, but if you engage with me in a certain way, I might discover you and start following you on Spotify, listening to you. You might not know my name, my email, my location, but at least I am part of your net and passively engaging with you. So you're probably already doing a lot of the stuff to reach, kind of get potential fans and passive fans. It's part of the game, right? Always posting content, whatever you may have on every platform to maximize distribution. Every single, if you post something on Shorts and Reels but miss TikTok, that's a whole platform with 1 billion people that you could potentially reach that, you haven't reached if you haven't posted. So always is posting on the release, posting releases, excuse me, on every platform. Obviously, things like making sure your social media is aligned, uploading lyrics every release to Genius and Music Match. Because believe it or not, like there's a lot of people that still go to Genius to like find lyrics and discover music. So even just having it there sets you apart for potential discovery. Uploading official audios on YouTube. YouTube's algorithm works where if you feed someone one video and they engage with it, it starts serving up on their algorithm way more videos from you. And so when I say upload official audio, what we've done historically, we've taken a whole project and uploaded every single song with the artwork just on YouTube separately from like the topic page that a distributor might make for you. And now there's 2 videos that you have that someone could stumble into. And then think about your music video, which is now a 3rd video that someone could stumble into. Then you might have a visualizer. Then you might have a TikTok cut of like organic content. So the more content you have out there, there's just more hooks for people to stumble onto you. It's very, just honestly, transparently speaking, it's very unrealistic to drop a song today and not put out content and have people find you. It's very hard. And that's just because of the saturation in the marketplace on all sides. That's not to say it doesn't happen. That's not to be discouraging in any capacity. I think it's just the way kind of marketing has evolved into today's era. It will probably change in 5 years. We might have like, VR goggles and like they're probably gonna be like virtual reality billboards. But for today, it's very much like you got to amplify your content and be loud about it, as much as you can. Last piece here too is like make an official playlist that you own on streaming platforms. So then you can have one place for all your catalog to live. And there's a playbook that we've been using for Symphony to drive ads to playlists to grow catalog that I can kind of chat about later on. But yeah, cool. Like that's one side of it. It's all very obvious. Music is very interesting, right? Because like it's very release driven. So you have a single, and then like maybe a month and a half later, you'll have another single. And then a few weeks later, you have an album and then music video, and then you pause, artists make some more music, it's inspired again, and you go back into that phase. So a big question we always get is like, when do you know to stop promoting something? Like when is something like lived out or does not have any more life? And it's different for every artist, every release, every song. I tend to look at some core metrics to decide if a song can still be amplified more than it is currently today. And it's obviously different for every artist, very subjective, but the core metrics I look at are two things. What's the save rate of a song, which is in the last 28 days, how many saves divided by listeners does it have? And what's the streams per listener ratio for the song? And so you see it at the bottom, right? Those are examples. That's from like the Suicide Boys, if you guys know them, one of the biggest independent artists in the world. We work very closely with their team, but they're crazy because they do millions of streams in a month, billions every few months, and their percentages are nuts. So if you see the streams per listeners, 5 million divided by one is 5 streams per average listener, which means this song, the average person is banging that 5 times a million. And then the save rate here is the number of saves divided by the number of listeners. So it's around 30%. So those are just two good metrics to look at. And now when you have it calculated for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 songs in your whole catalog, now you have a very realistic understanding of how every single thing you've made, not from an artistic perspective, but from a marketing perspective, can actually perform in the marketplace. You might have a song that has 10% versus 50 versus 20, or they might all be within one range. But at least starting with this data kind of gives you an understanding of like, all right, cool, this record, it's been 6 months since it came out and it still has a 30% save rate. Maybe we should keep marketing it. Any questions on that before I move on? Boom. Oh, what's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How's it going, bro?
Good, good. Thanks very much for this masterclass. And the question I have actually is like this, I think is very much geared towards Spotify. But how about other platforms that you don't even get this data from? Do you have like a CDP with Symphony where you can, ingest data from, say, Audio Mac, Boomplay? Because we do have a bunch of DSPs in Africa that,
Right.
it's not really supported on Symphony.
100%, 100%. And we are working on internationalization. So that is something that we're working towards as well. So we can hopefully support everyone globally. But you make a really good point, right? Every platform, every region, every fan base might be consuming from a different platform. You kind of have to rely on each platform's metrics to make that judgment. So I'm sure Boomplay might have a back end somewhere, hopefully, for you to see what's going on with the actual streams.
It
But
sucks, kind of.
it
But
sucks.
okay.
There's other proxy metrics you can
It's
look
not
at,
great.
right? Like there's proxy metrics. And what I mean by that is metrics that might not necessarily mean stickiness of music, but it can help you understand this relativity of how all your songs perform. For example,
Mhm.
look at daily Shazams over time, right? Certain songs flatline. There's not any more Shazams because no one's listening to it. Certain songs will like go like this and like randomly grow like this sometimes. So across your entire catalog, look at the daily growth in Shazams and the velocity of Shazam's growth, and you'll find a song that's growing faster than all the other ones. And that's really what we're looking for is like out of all these diamonds of music you have, right? Which one's the needle in a haystack that will actually continue bringing in more fans if you keep marketing it? Spotify obviously is one way of looking at it, but looking at all these other metrics, there's still calculations you can make like this. All you have to keep in mind is you want to calculate something that shows I guess percentage of affinity, if that makes sense. Like streams per listener is like 5 streams per listener. It's like the percentage of people who stream 5 times. Finding something like that
Mm,
for other platforms is also very helpful and key. I hope that answers
definitely.
your question. I
So,
don't know if
last question or last thing before I go
Mhm.
is more around like, custom events or like custom data. So, say we have all this, or say we have our own like, lifetime value. Can we bring that into Symphony and then use like, that kind of bidding with Facebook? I don't know if you can do Google, but say we have LTVs. Can we bring that into Symphony?
Yeah, that is something we are working on. I'll reach out to you. I'd love to hear more about what you're thinking about. But there's this concept of like a fan lifetime value to your point, which is like how much is if it's an average fan worth. It's kind of inspired by like tech companies, like what's the average subscriber worth? And same with like fan acquisition cost, right? Like how much does it cost whether it's time or money, to get a fan to be engaged. And it's the same thing as tech companies, which is customer acquisition cost. And so these kind of philosophies of building a business are much more mathematical. But if you crack the code, you can literally figure out, if I've spent $500 on these ads, my revenue will grow 250% here. So we don't have that sort of math kind of presented easily yet, but that is where we want to go to, where it's very easy to know the return on investment of any dollar you spend on music marketing. Yeah. Cool. I will continue on and we'll take a few more questions in a second. Boom. Oh, there we go. You got the you got the right idea. But cool. All right. So like you got some fans now. You've been dropping music. Maybe you have 10, 20, 1,000, 100,000, however many fans, but your Instagram isn't growing at all. Your email list isn't growing at all. They're all fans that are passive. They're just listening on Spotify. They might not be paying you any money. You'll be getting the streaming checks, which is great. But the next step of this puzzle is, how do you get those passive fans who are just watching you, like really just watching passively or listening on shuffle, to actually engage? This is where the marketing kind of magic comes in. And everyone has different philosophies, like there's different people that have broken artists in different ways. And this is just our playbook that we've learned over time. So don't take everything with a grain of salt you hear overall. But this is kind of where the magic is. And we anchor it on our side around two things. One is, I'll answer that shortly, but one is, step one, who do you actually want to reach? So step one is thinking about who you actually want to reach, where they hang out, what's your ammo, what's actually dropping. If you can define these three things, it becomes way easier to be like, all right, I should do this and this and this to actually reach these people that I care about. So let's start with like just a chat. Like, give me an example. Sorry, there's a loud car out here. In the chat, give me like someone or a few people, give me answers to this. I'm gonna do it interactive and walk through it live with y'all in terms of how I use this information. Anyone? Boom, boom, beautiful. Nian came through. Asian Americans in the female demographic, ages 18 to 30. The question was, so I want to make this a little bit more interactive. So this is where I start when I'm defining a marketing plan. And so I was asking in the chat, what are places, who are people you'd want to reach, and what are kind of your answers to these questions? Touring markets, EDM fans, love it. I love when people know exactly who they want to reach. Woman, 1835, smoking music, beautiful. All right, I'm gonna hone in on a few of these. So say we know that, right? Now, say I was your marketer, like, all right, bet, like I know these are the fans that you want, the people that will resonate with your music. Maybe might have some ideas around that too, but let's just start with that. Cool. So where do I usually start, right? So Nian, we'll start with you, right? Let's say like Asian Americans, female demographic, ages 18 to 30. Who do you want to reach? We now know that. Where are they? How do we figure that out? So I use a few different tools, and there's a bunch of tools out there to solve this. Step one, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, surprisingly, but it's very beneficial for marketing. Every artist on Spotify has their top 5 cities publicly available for anyone to see. And so let me show y'all, and we'll look at the Asian American female demographic next as an example. But let's say I was like, all right, cool. Like I want to reach Asian Americans and the female demographic. One idea of where to start is, let's look at, artists that kind of fit that profile. So let's say, look at, let's say Twee. She's going crazy. So now Twee is on here. Obviously, she's got a really good following and listener base. But for any artist, if you scroll down on here, all the way down to their about section, and you click on it, you can actually see where their top listeners are. And it's like, okay, word. I'm sitting here now looking at, all right, Indonesia is very strong for her, Thailand, Malaysia, LA. That's good to know. Let's look at another Asian American act. Let's look at Rich Brian, for example. Boom. Cool. Similar thing. Is there an overlap here? Okay, there's not an overlap here, but there's a broadening, right? Now we know Australia has some resonance. So Indonesia, LA, Australia, Toronto. So just kind of having these sorts of data sets is very helpful, because what it does is it contextualizes where a fan base could be and what they actually look like. Now imagine if you did this 5, 6, 7 times with different artists at varying stages of their career. find someone that has 50,000 monthly listeners, someone that has 500,000, someone that has 1 million, someone that has 50 million. Once you start doing that, you will build up a very clear understanding of what your fan base looks like for the audience you want. Because you'll see the person with 50,000 monthly listeners that maybe is already capturing the fan base you want. And you can be like, word, these are the 5 places where their fans are. Why don't I try and target my ads to those places? And then as you grow, it's one repeatable methodology you can use. So Danny, what's up, Danny? So Rena, we'll look up Rena. But the way you do this is on the Spotify app. You can go in here and then you can scroll down to the very bottom. I think it's only on the desktop app. Scroll down to the very bottom to the about section. And it's a little secret. They don't tell you, but if you click on it, fully available for any artist, their top 5 cities. And so, something to use. This is something old news for some people, not everyone. But easy to kind of use that information to actually apply it. So that's one side of it, right? That's one thing I use. Second piece, let me go here. Oops, wrong one. Second thing is something called the TikTok Creative Center. And so this is actually finesse. I don't know if a lot of people know about it. But what this does is if you log into TikTok and make ads and set up an ads account basically on TikTok, they have something called the Creative Center. And so going back to that example that Nien presented, Asian American women, 18 to 30 age range, we can go in here and be like, word, why don't we go into people in Indonesia, which was what was a very high traffic place for a lot of these artists. And then why don't we go to hashtags and see what's performing? But even beyond that, we can see the songs that are going crazy in the market. We can look at the creators that are going crazy in the market. You can look at this and be like, word, I might be in America, but if I'm trying to reach my fan base in Indonesia, I can look at these people's content and see what types of content they make and use that as inspiration. Beyond that, one thing I like to do as well, another little finesse that's available to everyone is literally just use the TikTok search bar as a mood board, right? So it's let's say, who's the artist? Tweet, just look her up. Or even R&B, whatever. So I use this as a way to surface ideas of different content. So if you look at these top posts, some of them might not apply, but at some point, some of them do apply. And you start getting ideas and inspirations of what you could do. Now let's broaden out a little bit, right? Let's do let's do the production or hip hop production. Production is obviously a very big niche in on TikTok, but you can start playing around with this and be like, all right, we're at hip hop production. What about weed rap production or I'm a piano production? All these things can kind of give you an idea of the creators in these places. And then you can look at what they're making and get inspired to kind of make content, knowing that these are people in places that are actually meeting reaching the folks you care about, if that makes sense. So that's another piece of it that I look at. Learn the actual audience, learn where they're at, learn the types of people that are reaching them, what they're making on top of what they're making to reach that audience. And then the third thing is in-chart metrics. It's also something we're going to roll out into Symphony very soon. And it's something we call audience lookalikes. Let me see if I can actually share this screen because I have no idea where it went. Cool. It's called audience lookalikes. And so there's this tool that we are rolling out. Chart metrics, I believe, already has some parts of it. And what it does is it shows you based on your followership, but also any other artist followership, who the top audiences are that are very similar to them. So it could be who is very similar to Symphony? Maybe it's another company in a different space. Maybe it's another competitor, but it gives you a very clear idea of other pages and other profiles that have a similar fan base for you. And I've seen artists go in and actually DM some of these folks that have a very similar audience and be like, yo, I'm posting this. Could you reshare it? I'll give you $50 or whatever it is. So all of that is very helpful to kind of just have. Chart metrics is expensive. We are going to be rolling something out similarly to this in Symphony for our kind of average Symphony Pro package. So that's something we're going to be looking at rolling out very soon. I'm just looking at the comments. There's it is based on having enough data, but even if you have zero data, you can use this public information to know where the future data looks like, right? Like if you look at someone that's 2 or 3 years ahead of you potentially in terms of reaching the fan base you want, you can understand what their fan base looks like and reach them. The TikTok Creative Center, hashtag search, just ideas of things you can make, especially because I know nowadays content is so king that artists sometimes get tapped out of ideas, which is totally fine. But it's just a nice way to kind of broaden your thinking around it. And then the audience lookalike finder, even if you don't have enough data of, you know, what your audience looks like, you could still put in another larger artist that maybe is a few years down the line from you are and learn what their audience looks like. The beauty is a lot of data nowadays is very publicly available. So you can actually like reverse engineer someone's audience by looking at where they're currently at, looking at someone one step below them and looking at someone's one step below them and just piecing the math together. And obviously very much easier said than done, but just spend some time on these tools and it becomes a little bit easier to be proficient in piecing these things together. I'm going to pause for questions real quick because I know people have some. Starting with Colin, you wanna hop in? Oh, anyone? Oh, here we go. Let's see. Question. So Shelby said, how do you know what artists you sound like or what artists you might be able to take after? That's more of a personal thing, right? Like I'm not going to be the one to tell you like you're this genre or that genre. I think it's more so like look at artists who are like kind of making on one side music that you think would resonate with your fan base as well, but on the other side too have a brand that might, and it might be separate, right? They might make super different music than you, but maybe have a similar brand positioning. So that's kind of one way, a few ways to kind of look at it. It's obviously not science as much as it is art, but it's more so just like trying to find someone you want to be like and being like, all right, where, like, what is their fan base looking like? And then how do I work backwards from there? Why 30% save rate? Honestly, it's just a benchmark. I've seen artists with like 5% save rates. I've seen artists with like 60, 70% save rates, which is actually crazy. 30% is a good middle ground that we've seen is fairly average for songs that have some life left in them. So that's kind of the benchmark we have. Let's see. Converting ads into Spotify streams. How often do you guys manage to break even with your clients' marketing budget, if at all? We dropped a feature today that makes this very possible. Before this feature, Instagram ads, a lot of ads platforms haven't necessarily been the best at collecting data. So what you'll find, you'll spend $100 on Instagram ads and get 20 fans or 20 streams, which is not ROI positive or anywhere near it. What we're going after, especially with this new feature, Symphony conversions, which I'll dive into, is all right. You spend that $100 and you're not going to make $100 back today, but over 6 to 12 months from the new fans you got and the new releases you have, that will be an ROI positive campaign. So music marketing is always forward looking, right? You'll get your streams up on your catalog, but it's more so the investment you're making in the fans today so they consume your music tomorrow. So it's much more of a different perspective than like purchase campaigns or e-commerce campaigns where if you spend $1, you want to make $5 back. But yeah, how do you calculate save rate? Just go to Spotify for artists, go to the music section and go divide just saves over listeners. And every song should have saves and listeners and all of that. But I have a lot more to go through and we're like short on time. But so I'm just gonna move forward and we'll leave some questions to the end. But this is kind of self-explanatory for a lot of people. It's like, cool, you have a timeline for your release. You want to actually go in and like schedule out what you're dropping, you know, maybe like right before you release, a few weeks before you release, the week of release, a week after your music video drops, whatever. Different for every artist, different for every release, but put it on a timeline so you actually know when things are coming out. And then philosophically going back to that funnel, this is a playbook I use for every timeline release to make sure I bring fans from potential fans into super fans. It's a very simple strategy. It's literally this and repeating it over and over and over again. You got to reward the fans that were there early, that felt like they were early, that maybe were actually early, but reward them throughout the process of actually releasing when everyone else can see that they were rewarded. And so what I mean by that is, we'll just dive into some playbooks shortly. You can use things like pre-saves. You can use things like fan data collection, tools like Laylo or MailChimp or whatever, Symphony, obviously Symphony, but you can use all these tools to collect fan data, emails, names, locations. Now you know which fans, like specifically their names, like which fans were the ones that pre-saved, who pre-saved first. All that data kind of comes in. Symphony always has it. I'm not sure about other platforms, but now you have a clear idea of like, all right, where like I got 20 of these fans that actually went through, logged into Spotify and pre-saved my song, which everyone knows pre-saves are not an easy thing. We have forever saves to make that a little bit easier, but even then, no one wants to log into Spotify on the IG browser. So the fans that do it for you really care about you, right? So like over time, this list grows, but you want to take these fans that came in and went the extra mile to be active and engaged, and then throughout your release, reward them in different ways. Treat them the best. They gave you their data. They trusted you with their email addresses. Reward them for doing that, because a lot of artists don't get that to happen for them, especially from, you know, a lot of fans. So what I mean by that is, let's look at some playbooks specifically on how to do this. Putting it all together. And I'm just going to run through some like high level playbooks. There's just references. You can mix and match. Everything in music and everything we built in Symphony is a Lego block, and you put them together and you have a rollout. And so what I mean by that is, cool. Here's one idea. You have a release in 3 weeks. You know, you do the standard pre-save. Maybe you run some ads in the top 5 places of your biggest artists lookalike. You have your pre-save. You get 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 pre-save to start growing over time. Use a share tool in Symphony to blast out to your Twitter followers, Instagram, TikTok, all of that adds up. Cool. Everyone's hyped. You're happy. You got some email addresses. Your email list is building. Song drops. Amazing. Within Symphony, you're going to have all this data around who your fans are, how they're actually engaging. Within Spotify, you'll start getting that data. Within other platforms, that data will start coming in. And then it's like, word. Very simple base level, right? It's like, all right, cool. Take those emails, go to MailChimp, soon Symphony, but go to MailChimp or Laylo or whatever. Throw those emails in and be like, word, I have a music video dropping in 2 weeks. Send them a 10-second snippet. Send them the different thumbnails you're thinking about. Send them something. Make those fans that actually went in and pre-saved your music feel like they're special. Even if it's 5 people, that's 5 people that are getting something back from you when, you know, they gave you something, which is their data. They actually engage actively. And this is a philosophy that's very key, because a lot of times people expect people to just buy into them. And that's not how things work. Things are based on consistent multiple touch points that ultimately build into a real fan artist relationship, or, you know, customer company relationship, or whatever it may be. So it's as simple as just being like, yo, I got all 5 of y'all on my email list now, and you guys are getting these video snippets like 2 weeks early. Just like, let me know what y'all think. Word. And then on top of that, you could do something simple, right? You own the content you put out. Hopefully, in a lot of cases, you own the creative side of it. So it's as simple as being like, yo, like these 5 people that pre-saved and forever saved are going to be my credits. I'm going to shout them out in the video. Like, yo, thank you so much for pre-saving, blah, blah, blah. That's very powerful, right? Because now you're taking something that was very transactional for a fan, which is like showing their support by pre-saving. You're bringing them into your world by giving them a chance to like be a part of building your world. And then you're actually putting them into your world by making them a part of your art. The psychology of that is crazy. Like if you think about that, if Drake did that to you like today, that would be wild. It obviously still you know, it's different if it's like a smaller fan base, but like it's the same philosophy. It's people want to feel like they're a part of something. They want to feel like they're in a community. And the best way to show that, obviously, to engage, but give back. You know, you can make your art consistently, take a piece of it and make it for the fans and make them a part of it. That's one idea. Another idea, very simple. And a lot of these revolve around pre-saves and data collection, but like that's my whole tip is like, maybe not even pre-saves, but like get your fans emails so you can actually do stuff like this. Because if all you're doing is relying on Instagram, it's going to be very hard to do this over and over consistently and have it compound. Another idea, right? Create a pre-save, go use a platform like Big Tiny Sound or whatever. There's a bunch of platforms out there to do micro influencer pushes. And as you're kind of doing that, you know, a lot of it's about optics, right? It's about getting a fan base hyped up. So you could be like, yo, I have my pre-save 3 weeks before the release, go pre-save now. Then you go and, you know, spend $100 on 20, 30 micro influencers before the song's out, right? They might be from all over the world, whatever. It's just about the content and the idea of a fan making content on your behalf. So take that money, get 30 micro influencers, right? Now you have a bunch of fans out there making content. Post that on Instagram, like, yo, we've gotten 30 people making videos to the song already. You know, can we get it to 20 pre-saves? And like challenge your fan base to work for you in a sense, but get them hyped throughout that process. I've seen an artist do this. One of the artists we work with did this. He made a music video, leaked it out. His fans were rabid. It was so they like started making videos around it. He started posting the pre-save stats publicly. We knew the release date. His fans didn't know the release date. So it was like, yo, I need to get 200 pre-saves for the next trailer. Word. He hit 200 that night. All right, I need 500 to hit this. And he kept on doing that for a few weeks before there was ever a release date for a song. And then he's like, yo, I need to get 10,000 pre-saves today if y'all want a release date. And he got 10,000. He knew the release date, but the fans don't know. Sometimes you can take advantage of that data mismatch, or there's a word for it, but you guys know the content, the art, the release dates. Fans don't know that. Use that as part of the marketing. Play with the optics, play with the rollout to get fans to feel like they're part of the rollout and challenge them to grow with you essentially. So this is one that's much more honed in on the pre-release. Another idea, again, pre-saves. This is a very simple idea, but you know, these are all different things you can kind of have in your Lego toolkit, so to speak, to mix and match. Create a pre-save, create an email list sign up, whatever. Before you release, be like, yo, all my fans who pre-save, I made custom signed posters. 3 posters. It costs you $15 a pop. Printify.com is shipping on demand, so you don't even have to go and ship it out yourself. 3 posters. Tell your fans, like, yo, I've already got 50 people pre-saved. 3 people are going to be chosen in a week. Word. It's a week before release. Then it's like, all right, cool. Everyone that's pre-saved, hop into my Instagram live. I'm about to pick the posters on live, and go to a raffle site, have a little spinner and pick the people on live. It sounds very simple in implementation because it generally is, but for fans, people don't do that. Like fans are very like treated very passively a lot of the time, and that extra step of really making them feel engaged and active in part of your rollout is helpful and makes people want to actually engage consistently. So yeah, that's one side of it. And then there's more. There's a lot of these. This is more of a money-oriented one, but running ads in your hometown, you know, being like, yo, like, give me your email to unlock a free show for me. Song comes out or whatever, and then you book a studio or a venue on Peerspace for a few $100 and have the 5 or 10 fans who actually pre-saved there with you for like a listening session. The beauty of Symphony is that all of this data, cities, countries, names, emails, is given back to you. So you can use it however you want to. And these are just some ideas to put these building blocks together. So yeah, this is kind of just what I went over, but the way I think about it is like just Legos. Like think about, you either spend time or you spend money, and there's a pre-release and the post-release, and then think about all the different Legos you can put together, and every single rollout can feel different, which is the beauty of it. But at the end of the day, it's all going back to that core principle of bringing people down that funnel and hopefully landing them in a place where, you know, you have super fans. So this is where the magic is, right? And I will say, I don't have answers to this yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to crack this repeatedly. This is where the magic of music marketing, which is where the magic of management and a lot of the game kind of comes from. But I do know that the people who do this really well actually employ these same playbooks I just showed you at the highest scale. Look at Brockhampton, their Ginger vinyl. They went #1 or #2 off of it. But before they dropped the vinyl, before they dropped the project even, I think, they're like, yo, we're going to put your name in the vinyl book if you buy a vinyl. So if you're a fan, you're about to be a part of Brockhampton's entire discography and history. 50,000 people bought physical vinyls, which if you know and follow music sales is a very high number, especially 3 or 4 years ago for someone like Brockhampton. But they sold 50K, they went #1, and they did it off the backs of really making fans feel like they're a part of the story. That's one example. Kid Leroy, simple as like, yo, like, come to my show, I'm going to airdrop you my notes app with 2 or 3 songs. You know, simple as that. A fan's like, yo, I went to the show and I walked away with a show and a new song. They got something for their fandom. Look at Drake. This is a funny one because it's actively happening every night. He's like, yo, like, who's got the biggest bra? And he's doing his whole thing, and like his fans love it. And someone went viral off of just having a big bra one night. But if you think about the psychology of it, like you throw the bra on stage and you're like, damn, maybe Drake picks it up and it turns into something. It's the same concept. Beyonce, everybody on mute. Like, she's doing the same thing on tour right now. Every show she goes to, she's like, yo, everybody on mute's about to come up. Y'all better shut up. And then people on Twitter on her behalf are like, yo, nah, Atlanta was the best. We were the quietest ones. And like someone's in Dallas is like, nah, we were more quiet. The fans are part of the world because she brought them into it. And they're consistently paying it back. Brent Faiyaz, Pin Drop. If you remember when Wasteland dropped his last project, he was on Instagram the following days after dropping it, dropping pins, showing his map, like, I'm gonna be here in 2 hours, pull up. And he had like not Michael Jackson moments, but it's like moments where he would just pull up at a location and fans would mob him. And that happened 3 or 4 times throughout the rollout. And that's because he was like, word, like, I'm just gonna pop up. If my fans are there, I would love to meet them and walk amongst them. And he did that and it worked out. And his project went crazy. And this is one that's a little bit closer to home. We built it, but SZActrl.com. The way we kind of built that website out, the idea was, why don't we take the songs and singles that are going to come out on CTRL, take the stems of the songs. It was like a Love Galore stem, it was like Travis Scott, it's lit, it was like those little stems. And then we turned it into an interactive soundboard. So 2 to 3 months before a single song dropped, before she didn't even announce CTRL, fans were going to this website, making beats using sounds from the project. And it was crazy because it got to a place where there were kids using the website to make original recordings using those stems. And like, that's the screenshot right there. Someone did it and like Punch retweeted it. It was the most tweeted about website in like 2017 when it dropped. It went crazy, but it's only because we're like, word, like, you have all these stems, fans have been waiting for you. Why don't we give them a chance to just like play with this music before it's even out? But yeah, those are just some ideas from the very highest level. But psychologically, if you think about it from a marketing perspective, it's all the same principle. You have fans that mess with you and you have to reward them however makes the most sense for you. Symphony edition, this is a fun one. So like, we use the same thing at Symphony. This is how I have kind of modeled our entire marketing. It's modeled after how artists market. If you look at, or at least how I think, artists should market in terms of best practices. But if you look at our TikTok, our Instagram, every 3 to 5 days, new content, like all the time, different things we're pointing out, different things we're hoping to educate people on. Twitter, we're announcing new features. We're starting to do more things like this. But even with this feature conversions that we've been kind of hyping up, last few weeks on my Instagram story, I've been hyping up this feature called Symphony Conversions, and it's been changing how a lot of artists market and the impact. So 3 weeks ago, I was like, word, like, look at this crazy thing we're about to drop. Like, this is wild. And everyone would DM me. I just gave them early access to the feature. I was like, yo, we're still testing this. It might break, but it's working really well and it might save you money. Try it out. So I have like 20 to 50 people that have used this feature the last few months leading up to actually launching today. And then it launches today. And so I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do the webinar and talk about it? And the fans, or excuse me, the artists that were there throughout it now can capitalize on the hype, being like, yo, I was actually part of that campaign before this feature dropped. I've already been in the future with this feature and it's going crazy for me. And this is why. So very similar kind of philosophy we take of like, we want to reward the community ourselves. Our kind of thing that we're selling, like an artist is selling music in a sense, we're selling software, we're selling products. But I think the way we've gone about it has been very intentional around like we really want to help artists out throughout this process. But the philosophy of how we market is very similar to how we'd market an artist if we were doing so. But yeah, I know we have 1 minute left. I'm gonna like run through this real quick, and all of this will be available on Symphony as well as via email. But very high level, it's all about this funnel. I could go on about this for hours. So if you guys have any emails, you can reach out to me. But it's really about taking this funnel and diligently with every release, finding ways to bring new fans into passive fans, reward those passive fans so that you can turn them into engaged fans. And if you do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to have super fans. And you're going to have people that will buy merchandise when you drop it. They'll come out to shows and pay you, all of that. And it takes time. It's not easy. There's no silver bullet. And I wish I had one, but I don't. Symphony is not the silver bullet. But what we do is we make this a lot easier. So this is the kind of the part where I talk about Symphony a little bit. But this whole like idea of building fan bases is how we built out our platform. And the issue has always been all this data potential versus passive versus engaged versus super fans has been all over the place. Feature FM, chart metrics, your Shopify, your email list, it's always been all over the place. We were like, no, it doesn't need to be like that. Why don't we just build everything into one place? So all of your data lives in one place. So instead of going in and having to question 7 different platforms with the question, who is my fan base? Symphony has all your data together, and every artist on the platform actually has their own data warehouse, we call it. That data warehouse feeds into all of our technology we built. Like, our tools learn and are customized to your fan base. The best part is, since it continues to learn, the more time you spend in Symphony, whether it's checking your dashboard, getting more emails from pre-saves, getting, spending money on ads and seeing who's resonating, this platform gets better because it's built on the philosophy of that. That's kind of how the whole thing was programmed. And that is why people ask me, why is Symphony different? Billion reasons, but it's actually the first platform that actually grows with artists. We have everyone from artists dropping their first song to the 21 Savages, SZAs, Summer Walkers of the world actively using it. And it's because of this one philosophy that no other platform is built around. Yeah, last few things, acting on data builds businesses. Music is no different. Every business that's big, whether it's $100,000 a year or $1 billion a year, data come into play at some point. Our whole thing is, you should own this data. You should know your fans, their locations, their names, where they're coming from, what they're engaging with. If you're spending money on ads, you should know what's working, what's not working. And that is the whole thesis of our company. Not a lot of companies in music act that way, but we've been here for so long that this is kind of our calling. We got to do it like this. And then we have a new feature we're announcing tomorrow and more in depth, and you'll see it in Symphony if you log in. It's called Symphony Conversions. We've basically taken a tool used by the biggest e-commerce advertisers in the world. I'm talking the Nikes, the Fashion Novas, like Shopify themselves. We've taken a tool that was very, very complex and hard to set up and made it something that any and every artist in the world can set up in 5 minutes. And the power here is very hard to overstate. This is going to change fundamentally, in my opinion. As someone that's done music marketing for a long time, everything about music marketing, because it's going to make every dollar you spend on marketing much more transparent around where it's actually going and if it's actually converting into streams. But beyond that, we are seeing artists get this result every time they spend money on ads. It's not going to be the same for every artist. A lot of it comes down to the content, but spending $500 and seeing all your fans go up and getting real DMs from fans is what Symphony is built for. Building a fan base, not building passive fans. And that is what Symphony Conversions Symphony Conversions kind of allows us to do with this new feature that came out. But yeah, y'all, that's kind of it. Thank you for hearing me talk at y'all for the last hour. I hope it was helpful. Ultimately, I'm just gonna leave y'all with this. There's a lot of ways to make it in music. This is not the only way. There's always gonna be new ways of doing it, but my whole thing is own your data, to use the tools that give you your data back. We have labels we talk to that take artist email addresses and don't give them back. Start today, build your email list, own your email list, and we're here to help out. You can always email our team. We're very, very supportive of the community and appreciate y'all even taking the time to tune into this. And yeah, we want to start doing more of these things. But yeah, that's Symphony University, how to get your first 100 fans. Any questions you have, my email is accessible and open. Some of y'all follow me on IG as well. But we are here to help out. Yeah.
Meg, did you want to take a couple questions before we ended?
Yeah, does anyone, if you have a question, you want to hop in the chat or raise your hand, and I would love to just answer live.
We actually have about 17 in the Q&A.
Okay. Charlotte, you want to just ask it and I'll answer it?
Yeah, no problem. One of the more recent ones is, how's the Symphony conversions any different from running the conversions on Facebook?
So basically, we've combined conversions with over 500 AI generated audiences that are very hard to make by hand. And that's where the beauty is, right? You can try it side by side, where if you set up Symphony conversions, run a campaign, set up a Facebook conversions campaign, I guarantee you our conversions cost will beat anything you do by yourself, because it's an AI that's learning your fan base, has all your data, and can optimize every second of the day to drive you more results. I get this question a lot. Why is Symphony better? Why is Symphony better? It's because it's actually built with all of your data to train it. And then we built AI to target ads. So it takes into account your whole ecosystem, not just what Facebook sees from your data.
Awesome. The people also want to know about the forever saves. Can you talk about that? That Symphony has to offer?
Yeah, it's a thing that the industry should have had like 6 years ago. And like, to be honest, companies like Feature FM haven't had incentive to innovate because they have deals with every major label. We came into the game, and then one of the first big features we launched, the pre-saves, is forever saves. And the concept is this: right now, you're asking fans to pre-save using Symphony, Feature FM, whatever you're using. You know, it's very annoying for the fan. Laylo, they're logging in with Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer. Maybe they're giving you the phone number first and then pre-saving with a tool like Laylo. Where forever saves comes in is it takes this kind of thing that you do every time you release and turns it from a transactional one-off thing into something that impacts every single release you will ever make in the future. And that is the true power of it. You know, you'll spend the time promoting for one song and you get 10, 20, 50 pre-saves. Next song comes around, you're going to have to do all of that over again. Forever saves changes all of that. You get 50 pre-saves, maybe you get 30 forever saves. Those 30 saves will be applied to every song you ever release in the future. It changes the concept from a transaction into a relationship with the artist. Going back to what we were just talking about, it just compounds. It compounds the work you're doing into more and more results.
Awesome. What would you say is the most important thing to look for someone who has under 200 listeners?
I think a big thing to look at is, like, at that point, there's not enough data to make an informed decision about your fan base, to be honest. What I would recommend in those cases is, like, think about who the people are that follow, like, who are the fans and what artists are they listening to, right? That are larger. Kind of going back to the philosophy I was talking about earlier, look at similar audience fan bases from other artists. Using that information, you can be like, word, maybe you're an R&B artist or a hip hop artist, whatever. Look at that fan base from the other larger artists, look at where their fans are, try some Instagram ads in those places and see if that actually adds up and brings in fans from those locations. If not, then, you know, you continue releasing music and putting out content to try and find those fans. To be honest, I don't have a consistently true answer here. Sometimes you'll do everything and you won't grow, and all it really takes is dropping more music. And so don't overthink it, especially early on. Like, focus on what you want to do, which is the music and the art. Once you start figuring out some patterns in your fan base, or start having an idea of how to keep pushing things, Symphony is here to help you spend money in the right way so you don't waste it, especially with conversions.
To that point, right? Someone was asking, what happens when you don't see something going crazy? Do you just keep marketing, or do you pivot, or do you create new content, or try different audience or larger audience?
Try everything, to be honest, right? There's no one right answer. It could be that you're targeting the wrong locations. It could be that you're targeting the wrong ages or genders. Maybe only women like your music, and that's fine. But that you can that's a data point to learn from. And a lot of the times you don't have data points like that. So what I say is, like, start small. Even with something like Symphony, start small. Start with setup conversions first. Start with like $50 or $10, like something very small, and just drip it out. So you start getting more of an informed decision of your fan base over time, like $10 this month, $10 this month, $10 this month. By the third campaign, you're going to have an idea of who people are, where they're clicking from, and what they look like, ages, genders, cities, states, countries. And over time, like, as you start building up that understanding of your fan base, it gets easier to make future decisions with that data in mind. So it's not a true answer, but it's really just like, you have to try everything until one thing works, right? But trying everything is step one. And then once you figure out what actually works, you can double down much more smartly and consistently.
Awesome. It seems like a simple question, but also very important. How would you define a fan in your own words, Meg?
I think there's different levels of fandom, right? Like, I'm a fan of a lot of artists that I would not buy merchandise for. There are some artists that I would go crazy for merchandise for, right? I think it's different for everything. I think there's varying levels of fandom. Generally, though, I think it breaks down to those 4 categories of potential fans, like people that don't know about you. Like, I'm a potential fan for a lot of y'all in this chat. I just haven't heard your music yet. So potential fans, passive fans, like, maybe you send me your song And I'm like, this is fire. I'm gonna listen to all your catalog on Spotify and run up your streams, but maybe I don't have your IG. So all I can really do is stream. I can't like your post or comment or share. All I can do is stream. So that's like kind of passive fandom. There are some passive fans are also active. It's kind of a gray area, but that's passive fandom. Active fandom is like, word, I found your Instagram. I'm like, yo, I love all your music. I'm posting it on my stories. You drop a pre-save, I'm pre-saving, I'm commenting, I'm sharing with my friends. So I call that an active fan, someone that's actively engaging and choosing to engage with you and your content and your music. And then the super fans, which is like this very kind of fluid term in music that changes every year, but it's like, yo, who are the people that are actually giving you real money to fund yourself as an artist? They might be buying merchandise, coming to shows. Obviously, streams pay up, but who are the people taking money out of their pocket to give you to build your business? Essentially, those are super fans. So I'm not going to say there's one type of fan. I think it just breaks down by demographic and is very much dependent on the fan base, how they kind of look like.
Very well said. Very well said. I'll take it's 8:11 now. We'll take, well, not 8, but
One
we'll
more
take,
question. I gotta run. But then my email's out there, so we can tap in from there.
yeah, anybody who has any sort of technical questions, definitely reach out to our support team. But this last one is, what is the highest leverage action artists can do? For example, making a system for consistently creating content is one, but what are some other high leverage systems that artists should be building and have?
I think just like documenting things more. And that's a very boring answer, but I think like I'll see if I can send like one of our marketing plans over by email, but like we document every marketing plan internally like 6 months ahead of time in terms of like, this is when this will drop, this is when this post will drop, this is when this video will drop, this is when the song will drop, this is when the pre-save will drop, kind of every piece of it. This is when the ads will start, this is when they'll stop. Once you start documenting things, it can help you start assessing things. And once you can start assessing things, it becomes easier to be like, word, I spent money on ads here and this did not hit. So next rollout, I'm going to leave that off my marketing plan. So I think that's like one thing, and it's kind of boring because it's just writing things down. But like if you do it consistently over and over, you yourself will build a fundamental understanding of what works and what doesn't, and what more specifically works for you and your fan base. So I'll create a system around like your releases and like documenting that information so you can learn from it as you continue to grow.
All right. Thank you, Meg.
Cool, y'all. That is it. This was our first Symphony University. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I know there's a lot more questions. Reach out to our team at symphony.to, Meg at symphony.to. If you haven't signed up, let us know and we'll drop we can email out the kind of Symphony onboarding link to schedule one. But yeah, y'all, thank you all so much. This was dope. We'll stay tapped in. This will be live in the Symphony app by Friday, so you'll be able to log in and see this. And yeah, we'll just take it from there. Stay tuned for the next one. Appreciate y'all. Peace.